Hello and welcome to part 6 of my How to Support series. This week going over vision lines. It will be complementary to my episode 2, which you can find above, over vision control, where I went over the vision control of the lane phase and of the Dragon Baron pit. This week vision lines will be covering going and pushing and defending tower lines, and hope you enjoy. Like, comment, subscribe, and hope you learned something new today. Vision lines, what are they? Well, it's a very simple concept actually. The idea is you have 3 wards and you always want to make a wall with the wards where the enemy cannot penetrate. So by example, here is a basic vision line. I place a ward here, here, and here. So if I draw a line between these, you can see it creates a wall. So if your bot lane is pushing up to tower, you know the enemy cannot get behind you because you have the vision line. But what happens, say, as an example, if you didn't do a vision line, what if instead of placing that ward, you got a ward here and here thinking you're protecting the entrance to your jungle and you put your last ward down here, right? Well, this is the problem with this kind. You're not making a line. So now there's actually holes in your defense where the enemy can actually come, hop this wall and come from behind you. So if you're placing aggressive, you can actually get ganked from behind and killed, which means when you have this kind of vision, you can never play aggressive bot because you don't have a complete wall behind you. So this is the idea of vision walls, and hopefully that clears up the idea. One more thing about vision lines is the idea that it's not only you have your 3 wards, but you have your teammates' wards. So for example, say in a game, your top laner is pushing for the tier 2 top and he places his own ward there. Well, as you come back to base, don't go and make a vision line like this now, because now you're leaving this huge gap here, right? What you want to do is usually if your teammates place wards, you want to try and make a vision line with their ward. So if my top laner placed the ward there, I could maybe place a ward over the wall here, a ward here, and a ward here. And now if you take a look at our vision line, we made a line like this, which basically is saying that this whole area of the map is most likely safe. And this is the dangerous side of the map because this line, the enemy cannot pass without us seeing them. So hopefully this clears up the idea of vision lines, and hopefully you can take into your game. Now I'm going to go into showing you how to place vision lines as you're pushing for towers. And then at the end of the video, I'll go into vision lines when defending towers. Okay, now we're going to go on to offensive vision lines for each tower in the game and show you how you can put the lines. Keep in mind that these are just one of the possible lines you could use for each tower, and there are infinite number of lines. You need to make sure the line matches the kind of champions are on the enemy team and the kind of game state you're in. So these are just examples. But for example, say you were pushing this bot lane tower, you could place a ward here, here, and here, creating a vision line like this, meaning that your whole area here is safe and you can push. One other thing that I didn't explain before by accident is your control wards. They're called control wards for a reason. You want to control them. So you usually do not want to put your control wards in front of your vision line because the enemy will just come and kill them. Usually you want to put your control wards somewhere behind because you can sit in them, and if the enemy comes, you see the enemy coming before they come and you can kill them. So this would be a good line if you were attacking the bot lane tower. Say you were attacking the tier 2 bot lane tower. So if I was pushing this bot lane tower here, I would maybe consider a vision line like this. So I need to have vision over here. So I'd place a ward there, maybe here, and maybe here, right? And create a line like that. And then I would want to make sure that if the enemy came from a flank like this, that maybe I put my control ward in this bush so that as we're pushing, it's hard for the enemy to get behind me, or I could have put my control ward there, but you get the idea. So that would be maybe a control ward you could use for this tower. Again, multiple wards you can use. And if I was pushing the inhibitor tower, I'd put a control ward here so that I can move here and not get picked. Obviously, I'd try to put one over the wall to get vision. And then again, I need to cover my flanks and make a ward line, so I'd probably put one here and put one right here to create a wall as I push in, making it very hard for the enemy to flank. Alrighty, let's move on to the top towers, and then we'll go to the mid. Since mid's a bit tricky, it's not necessarily always a line. So say I was pushing the tier 1 top. I would maybe put a ward here, and a ward here, and maybe I would put my control ward here as it makes a line, and it's very safe to push, and the enemy can't get by it. Say I was attacking the tier 2 top tower. If I was attacking this one, usually I'd put my control ward in this bush to try and get control so I can maybe set up a dive or something, and I'd probably put a ward here, maybe here, and maybe here to create this kind of a ward line. And hopefully these ward lines are making sense as you see them. As you're pushing, you have an area of control where you can hover and see if the enemy's coming to flank and make picks, and the enemy cannot pass through this control line because you'll see them. They have to actually walk all the way around it, which takes time because they have to push out the wave in order to sneak behind it, at which point you know they pushed the wave and you know they're maybe coming from behind. But anyways, and finally, the inhibitor tower, I would probably put a control ward there, and I would probably put a ward over the wall. And then again, fill up the blanks here. I have a nice ward line here. I'd probably put one there. So as we're pushing in, if someone does find a flank from behind, whoopsies, if someone does find a flank from behind, it's covered. So yeah, that's a basic line I would do for that. And now let's go to the middle towers. So the middle towers are a little bit different. You can't necessarily do just a line unless you have more allies helping you ward. But in general, you kind of want to make 2 mini walls. I call these more flank ward placements. One thing I want to say is the side towers are easier to push because of the fact that you can make lines. The middle towers, you're usually only going to push if you have something like you made a pick and you have a man advantage, you have a Rift Herald, you have Baron, right? If you have some sort of advantage. If you don't have an advantage, it's hard to push mid as there's going to be holes in your wall. So pushing mid, I'll show you just one side or the other. You usually put a control ward in one of these bushes so that you can camp it and look for picks. And then maybe you'd place a ward here, right? And maybe you'd place a ward here and here, right? You're creating 2 mini walls to your side, but there's still lots of ways for the enemy to get over and flank you quite easily unseen. So again, you don't want to necessarily be pushing without control. So that's how I would attack maybe a tier 1. If I was attacking a tier 2, usually you want to get a control ward if possible in this bush. This bush is super crucial to have control of when you're pushing this tower. So I'd maybe put a control ward there, a ward there, a ward here, and maybe a ward over there, right? So as I'm pushing this tower, my teams again are safe from the immediate flanks, but again, big flanks, don't want to do this unless you have some sort of advantage already usually. And then finally, if you're pushing the middle tower, you either put a control ward on this side or this side, depending what side you're pushing from, and you get a green ward over that side, right? And say we'll do it if I was pushing with the control ward on that side, right? I'd probably put a green ward here and a green ward here to create kind of safety from both sides as we push in. Again, very hard to push middle towers. So yeah, these are just some basic wards for pushing on both sides. Obviously, it's the same if you're going the other way, it's just reversed. Hopefully this helps you guys on your attack and just getting some basic vision lines. Again, the vision lines always change based on how the game is. I just want to show you guys some basic lines so you guys can understand. Now we're going to move on to the defense phase and some basic defensive vision lines that you can use. All right, so now I'm going to show you some defensive vision lines. I'm going to start this time in the opposite, use the middle, and then do the side ones after. So again, on defense, it's different than attack where you could be defending in a neutral position and defending in a negative position where you're stuck under tower. We'll start off if you were in a neutral position, for instance here, maybe one line you could use is you put a control ward here to make sure they don't have vision there, and you could do something like a ward here, here, and a ward here, making kind of mini side things to go by. If you were forced under tower and they were pushing you, you could do maybe a control ward, a ward there. You put a ward here, and a ward over here or something, right? And you can sit here and you know that no one's coming from this side and you're feeling pretty safe. If I were defending a tier 2 tower, again, if you were in more of a neutral state, I like control. You want to control this bush, so maybe I'd put a ward there. I'd put a ward maybe over here, a ward over the wall here, and a ward here, making this nice vision line in the middle and control it. If I was forced under tower and they were coming in and you were making a vision line, you could put a control ward here, right? And you could put your vision line, you could put a ward here, a ward over here, and a ward over here, right? Something like that. Again, it just depends on the game. These are just basic vision lines to help you guys understand the concept. And if I were defending my middle tower here, depending what side they're on, but say they're pushing from this side, I put my control ward here. Usually they're going to sweep this bush, maybe just put a ward over the wall like that. You put a ward over here, and maybe you put a ward over there, something like that. Now let's move on to the side towers. Again, the middle one, it's not really lines. It's more like flank areas. It's hard to make a line because it's so open. On the bot lane, if I were pushing, defending, and if I was in a neutral position, something like this, you put a ward here and a ward here and like maybe a ward over the wall here, right? And that'd be a decent position to be in if I was defending this side. If I was forced under tower and I was defending, you'd put your control ward here, right? And you'd put a regular green ward over here, maybe one over the wall here to stop a mid lane flank, and a ward in the bush so that you're not getting, if they're in the bush or not. If I was defending the bot tower and I was under my tier 2, usually you would want to, in a neutral position, get your control ward there, right? And you'd put your green ward over there, over here, and over here to make this nice vision line where they can't pass. But if you were in a position where they were shoving you under tower and they were taking control of the jungle, Usually there's not really a good control ward spot at this point, but you could try and control ward this bush, even though they'll probably kill it. And you're probably not gonna be able to get a ward into that bush, but you'd put a ward over the wall here. You'd walk over and place a ward in this bush. And if you can get a ward over the wall there, that's pretty good to make this kind of wall here and not in sight of their control wards. If I was under the tier, my inhib tower over here, you put your control ward here, you get a ward over the wall here, over here, and maybe put one in the middle like that. Or if your middle inhib's down, you do that. Or if not, you maybe get it deeper, depending on what's going on there. And finally, we'll go to the top side. So if I was in a neutral position top, I put my control ward there, and maybe I'd do a vision line like, let's see, if I was defending this tower and I was in a neutral position, I'd probably get a ward here, a ward over the wall, something like that, and I'm in a neutral position, right? If I was in a defensive position going for this tower, you put your control ward usually in this bush or this ward. Let's just say this bush for this example, and maybe I'd put my green ward here, here, and there, creating a line where the enemy cannot pass over here behind me to get a flank, and just this ward to make sure they're not camping the bush and I don't get leg ganked. If I was defending this tower here, a very good control ward actually is to put your ward right here over the wall, because if you're standing here as a support, it's very easy to defend, and as they're pushing in, you can look for a flank. But if you're going to put your ward there, you need to make sure they're not on the other side of the wall. So you do something like a ward line like this. You put a ward here, and maybe a ward over the wall right here, and create this kind of a ward line that you can sit on your control ward, and you're completely safe because the enemy cannot cross without you knowing they're coming for you. And finally, if I was on defense and they were coming for my inhib tower on the top side here, I'd put my control ward there, and then I'd put a ward over the wall. And then again, if no inhib, I'd put a ward here. But if their inhib's up, maybe I'd put a ward there, and maybe we get, if we can, a ward deep there. It's not really a vision line here, but it's just getting you the vision in the areas. So yeah, if the middle inhib was down, maybe again, you'd put your ward there, stuff like that. Again, hopefully this helps you guys out with some basics. This is not like me saying every time you're in these states, you have to ward like this. It really depends. For instance, you could be versus a team that has no one who has abilities that can get over walls. If they don't have abilities that can get over walls, then you don't necessarily need that ward, right? That ward's not as useful because you know they can't get over this ward. And then placing a ward over here becomes more useful because it's the entrance to the jungle. But then say you're facing a team and they have LeBlanc, right? Well, you're going to want a ward there because LeBlanc can jump this wall. So it's all dependent on team comps, game state. This was just me showing you some basic lines for every single tower. So if you're not good enough to determine based on the game state, you can just copy these and use them, and it should be pretty good for whatever elo you're in. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Please like, comment, subscribe, and help me out with this video. Share it to your friends. I've been doing this now for 6 weeks, a month and a half. It is very taxing and tiring. I have one day off a week where I don't do anything, and now you spend that making these videos. So I hope you guys appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time.